Hello, folks. Well, in the last episode, we finished the Democratic's representative introduction, and today we are going to start with the hearings. So, let's try to listen to this without getting too annoyed. Right? Now, allow me. Remember, please, to check the original video in Forbes. They have a channel in YouTube. Please go watch them. Please hit that like button, and please also remember this video with other people's contents, at least in this format, this will never be monetized. Okay, I'm not earning a single euro from this, nothing. Okay, I'm just trying to show this to people that might not have the opportunity of having watched the entire thing. Now, let me just set up the video here and we can continue. Okay, let's go.
Gentleman yields back. I would just point out that the encounter that the ranking member had with Mr. Farage was a little different at my recollection than how it was described. And I would also point out that the gentleman alleges there's no free speech in America under President Trump, while his staff member.
Again, excuses, and I am right here in Europe, and I happened to make a bit of an investigation, and more or less, yes, the encounter with Mr. Farage went as it is. And as for free speech in the United States, well, you make up your own conclusions.
Is holding up countless number of articles criticizing the Trump administration. I think that's
as you can see, I'm really detesting this
creature. That's not how I think it actually goes. So we now will introduce today's witnesses. We will start with the Right Honourable Nigel Farage. Mr. Farage is a member of Parliament from Clacton and the leader of the Reform UK Party. He is also a television host and was a leading proponent of the Brexit campaign.
Sorry, folks. Now they are going to present to you the people that will be talking.
Mr. Lorcan Price is an attorney with the ADF International, a nonprofit organization that works to protect religious freedom, free speech, parental rights, and the sanctity of life. Before joining ADF International, he was an attorney in Ireland. Mr. Morgan Reed is the president of the App Association, a trade association comprised of app developers and connected device manufacturers. He routinely testifies before Congress on matters of interest to his members, including artificial intelligence, competition, and other issues. And we have Professor David Kaye. Mr. Kaye is a clinical professor of law at the UC Irvine School of Law. Professor Kaye previously served as the United States Special Rapporteur on the promotion and protection of the right to freedom of opinion and expression. We welcome our witnesses and thank them for appearing today. We will begin by swearing you in. Would y'all please rise and raise your right hand?
Allow me.
Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge, information, and belief, so help you God? Let the record show that each of the witnesses answered in the affirmative. You can, thank you. Please be seated. Please know that your written testimony will be entered into the record in its entirety. Accordingly, we ask that you
summarize your testimony in 5 minutes. I think we'll just go down the line, and we will start with Mr. Reed, then Mr. Price, Mr. Farage, and then Professor Kaye. So, Mr. Reed, you're recognized. 5 minutes.
Conveniently pushing to the bottom of the line, the only person that will actually speak against their narrative. Just pointing this out. Small details that I believe are important.
My name is Morgan Reed, and I'm the president of ACT, the App Association. Our members are small and medium-sized.
This man represents private interests. This man does not represent public interests, meaning this guy represents companies that make a profit out of apps, out of your data, and they sure as hell want your data to be as unprotected as possible, or at least for you to feel the need to use their services to have your data protected. Unlike, for example, the act that they don't like, that is putting the state protecting directly the data of people. Let's continue.
Tech companies from your districts and around the world. We build and sell the apps and the products you love. If you're scheduling a haircut, tracking your productivity at work, or
Please understand that when he says around the world, he is just talking about the United States, okay? We have to understand this. And he's not just talking about the United States or companies that are financed, partially owned, or controlled, or are customers of the United States companies, okay? So, American tech.
using online tools to train your employees, it's likely one of my members made that happen. I'm here to tell you that our European members are just as good, just as smart, and just as entrepreneurial as our American members. Whether it's Clement Sauvage in France, Mitchell Volkring in the Netherlands, or Mark Thomas in the UK, their companies are busy trying to change the world. The difference between them and our American members can be seen in the ever-growing wall of ex-ante regulation and compliance requirements from an EU government that is constantly.
Again, he's trying. Let me just focus on me for a while, okay? He's trying to present his cause as a common cause to European developers, when in truth, yes, it's true that European developers often criticize the Commission, but he conveniently forgets that what happens is, as it has happened really often here, the EU representatives, when there are issues, they simply meet with the companies directly, they talk, and they find a solution to, in one hand, implement the law, which is the sovereignty of the state in defending our fundamental rights that are defended in our constitutions, okay, and the interest of the private companies. And as far as I can see, and I watch the news, Portuguese, Castilian, that is Spanish for you Americans, in English, in German, and in a couple of more languages that I prefer not to divulge, let's so to speak. What I see is even a climate, let's call it like this, an environment that subsidizes, that reinforces, that aids local companies to develop new technologies for us all. And this includes you Americans too. I think the key issue here is local companies. He does not like that, for example, almost all European governments finance universities to develop apps, to develop technologies, to develop methods of work. I think that is the issue. But let's continue to listen to the gentleman. Okay, let's continue. As I said in the first video, pardon me, we need to take it easy.
Constantly asking how government can be more involved rather than less. Unfortunately, the DMA is a perfect encapsulation of the problem.
No, it is not.
Ostensibly, it exists to make it easier for EU companies to compete with the US tech lead.
Again, did you hear? He does not like it because ostensibly it is for to benefit the EU companies.
Instead, it just creates leadership in red tape. Small companies
No.
find value in the bigger platforms for three boring and absolutely vital reasons.
You're providing a service that those small companies, if they have direct access to the market, and they are not blocked by you, will be able to do without having the hassle of dealing with your companies.
They need to offload overhead, have access to a global market, and have customer trust. Because small businesses are all.
When you talk about a company from the EU, Because of this strong regulation, trust is one of the first things any foreign market thinks of, because he knows that market, that person, that company, whatever, knows that if the EU says the law is like this, then they are certain that things are like this, unlike your country.
Always overworked and undermanned. For us, offloading overhead is critical. A small business is trying to ship a product, not learn about tax laws in 160 countries. We don't want to sign multiple contracts with middlemen to handle shipping.
The only reason why you are hiring 100 middlemen like you are talking about is because you don't know the laws, you don't want to know it, you just want to get your business out quickly and make your profit without any kind of consideration to the state and to the consumers. You don't give a shit about the consumers.
Or web storage, or send bills to dozens of different platforms, each with their own PO system. Small businesses need to focus.
No company in the EU has the different PO systems or whatever you. So he's talking gibberish, but there is a global platform in the EU for taxing. Let me just focus on it. Look, a company here that wants, for example, to sell their products, let's say to Portugal, to France, to Germany, to Italy. Each of these countries, they have their own tax system that is very similar, equal in some cases, but that has small differences. This is why the EU has in it mechanisms that allow a company to, for example, imagine this: you set up your company in Germany. From then on, even if you're selling to Portugal, you are paying your taxes in Germany, correct? So you don't need to worry with intermediaries with 1,000 paperwork and whatever the type of bureaucratic nightmare this guy is trying to create. You don't need to worry about that, okay? You just need to worry with Germany. You just need to go to, for example, do what companies do here: hire an accountant, and the accountant, he takes care of those things for you, okay? Or even like big companies do, hire a lawyer, and the lawyer takes care of all those things to you. Okay, it's actually very simple, but I guess it's a bit complicated for people like this gentleman that, as I said, has private interests behind him to understand. No, let's continue to listen to him. All right, please continue.
Their time on serving the customer to compete. And of course, to grow your small business, you need customers. And that means access to a global market. If your product has fewer than 100 customers in your state, that's a hobby. But 100,000 customers worldwide, that's a business.
Companies in Europe export all over the world, even from a small country like Portugal.
Nearly every one of the DMA's designated gatekeepers are actually gateways to a global market. But you might say, Morgan, the internet itself is a global market. And we would agree, but the internet lacks one key characteristic: trust.
Trust is what he calls his companies as middlemen.
Today, many of us take for granted the measures of keeping malware and other harmful content off of our devices and off of our shopping sites. But DMA threatens to change this by forcing companies to roll out the red carpet for bad actors.
No, it's precisely the opposite effect. It blocks bad actors, like, for example, Google reading everyone's data and then selling it to the American government. Like just this year, it seems in January, happened.
Result, consumers will rationally steer away.
Allegedly. I don't want to be called a liar.
From startups and small developers they've never heard of, and towards larger, more established rivals that spend millions on marketing and buy Super Bowl ads to build their brand. Don't forget who's pushing.
Again, he's talking about the American reality. We don't care about the American reality. We are talking about European reality. And in a state, in a system of governance, in a group of states that are, let's call it, under a single organization, it is actually quite easy for example, small company in Portugal. I remember out of my my mind, out of my memory, sorry, a friend of mine that is a farmer, and that he's able to sell his traditional products all over the EU. Imagine that. And I think he's selling to Brazil also. Brazil or Argentina, I'm not quite sure. But let's continue to listen to the jungle.
The DMA. It's companies like Spotify, Yelp, DuckDuckGo, companies you've heard of. And just in case you think I'm exaggerating, the first business to take advantage of the DMA's requirements wasn't some brilliant startup being kept down by big tech. It was an app called Hot Tub, a porn aggregator that can now be sideloaded and could even operate without parental controls. This is the most
False.
damaging aspect of the DMA. By forcing the gatekeepers to remove features or capabilities that would keep bad actors off your smartphone and out of your wallet, the DMA demands the world adopt a flea market model, where anybody with a plastic folding table and some boxes that fell off the back of the truck are given the same access to consumers as legitimate businesses.
They are giving access to consumers, but they are being recorded and registered in a database. This means we know who they are, my friend. While you like to dilute your data in endless middlemen. That then, one of those middlemen sells our data.
For small businesses, we want the platforms to provide us with ever-improving tools, features, and pricing models to make it attractive. We don't love the big platforms, we do business with them. Because
Neither do we. And if you have been careful enough to see the attitude of the EU towards large companies, you would see that we deconstruct monopolies, cartels, and we find large companies. Name a big American company, and it has probably already been fined by the EU.
without our products, their platforms aren't worth very much. Without their tools, our overhead goes up, our speed goes down, and trust goes out the window. If we have any ask of the platforms, it's for them to do more, not less. We want them to do more to reduce overhead, more to protect our intellectual property, and do more to maintain those trust relationships. And into this relatively straightforward business arrangement, Europe has injected regulatory walls like the Digital Markets Act, the Digital Services Act, the Online Safety Act, our old
Europe has injected the law.
friend GDPR, and the newest edition, the AI Act. These laws aren't there to lower friction. They are, as Teresa Ribera at the European Commission puts it, focused on creating a culture of compliance.
Exactly. A culture of compliance with the law, something you are not used to.
That's a quote. While an ever-thickening wall of overlapping regulations is exactly what compliance lawyers want, it's not
It's not a thickening cloud of compliance, blah, 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 whatever gibberish this idiot is trying to talk about. Sorry, this person is trying to talk about. It's the law. And it's clear, and it's written, and it's accessible to anyone, including the consumer.
what innovators want. It's not what small businesses want, and it's not what customers want.
Small
We ask you to
businesses,
reject the European
small businesses are, again, small businesses want security.
regulatory culture and instead focus on a culture of opportunity and innovation. Small businesses never succeed if we can't beat the red tape. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to your questions.
A lot of gibberish for nothing. Well, let's listen to one more. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Mr. Price, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Chairman Jordan, Ranking Member Raskin, distinguished members of the committee, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lorcan Price. I am a barrister and legal counsel for ADF International, and I'm very happy to come here today to speak to you about the perilous situation for freedom of expression.
Again, a biased opinion. And a lawyer. Let's not forget this.
In Europe and why it matters for Americans. I do this on the basis of my experience litigating in speech and religious liberty cases before the European Court of.
And again, also, let's not forget this. This is very important. Christian right-wing inspired movements.
Human rights. However, today, principally, I wish to address the Digital Services Act of the European Union. But before I do that, I'd like to set the scene briefly by telling you how bad things have become in Europe and the United Kingdom, and very much building on the remarks of the chairman. Because when I met some of the members of the committee in Europe recently, I think that there was a genuine element of surprise and disbelief about the state of affairs in Europe. I'll give you some examples. In Finland, our client, Päivi Räsänen, a member of parliament, is now in year 5 of a prosecution for simply posting a verse from scripture on Twitter. Our client, Rose Doherty in Scotland, is.
I will ask you to look at all these cases and see how they are taken out of context. Please. Just do that homework.
74-year-old grandmother was arrested by offering to have consensual conversations for people. Adam Smith Connor, an army veteran, was prosecuted for praying silently in his head in England. And just yesterday, you'll have seen that the UK police arrested a comedian and fellow Irishman, Graham Linehan, a person I know well, for tweets about gender ideology. German pensioners are having their homes raided and are being prosecuted for insulting politicians.
False.
Indeed, one member of the Green Party in Germany has over 700 criminal complaints outstanding for insult.
Because it is, let me just, this is a bit, look, allow me, this part I can talk about because I know, due to my work. Let's just say it like this, because as I told you, I don't really want to talk about my work because it might seem like I have some kind of bias or whatever. In Portugal, as in Germany, you cannot insult someone out of context, and especially on a public platform. This is why, when I was calling him an idiot, I recanted myself and I apologized because I was going a bit too far. Because to censor a behavior as idiotical, it's not the same saying as offending the person. Because a person is a person, his words are his words, okay? So what happens is this. If you go on a public platform and you start insulting people, insulting in this sense, telling lies, because look, no one is going to arrest you if you say that all politicians are a bunch of crooks and they are just there to leech on our tax money. No one is going to do anything to you. But if you systematically going through a public platform publicly, and you start to insult people, if you start to incite to hatred to those people, like for example, inciting hatred to a determined religion, a determined sexual orientation, okay, whatever, you understand, that is a crime, okay? You cannot, for example, I could not. Look, I'll give you a brief example. I could say this, for example. I don't think my president, this is an example, okay? I don't think my president is doing a good job. I think he might be in the lobbies with the other guys and doing this and doing that. Okay? And I think I did not like these words. He seemed like he had no idea what he was talking about. He was acting like a stupid person. I cannot understand this behavior. This would be accepted as speech. But if I went into the same situation and I was said that guy, he murdered people, he did this, he did that, he's a this, he's a that. You understand the difference of the directness of I'm not analyzing a behavior or a political how you call it position. Okay, I'm attacking directly the person. I'm inventing sayings. I'm insulting that person. I'm insulting him, insulting his family, whatever. This is the difference. And this gentleman that identifies himself as a barrister and appears to be so knowledgeable on German law, since he's talking about it, and Finnish law, since he's talking about it, then I guess he should know that. But again, you make your own opinions about it. Let's continue. Let's try and then at least the presentations.
What's happening in Europe is, as Vice President Vance said on St. Valentine's Day in Munich, a serious retreat from a fundamental value, that of free speech. It's a sign that our European political elite has lost control of the narrative,
Oh
and the
my
Digital
God.
Services Act is the response to that, an increasingly desperate attempt to suppress growing public discontent. Why should this matter for Americans? Why should you be concerned?
Only growing
Because of the worldwide reach of European law,
discontent for you.
the so-called Brussels effect changes regulation in every area that the European Union chooses to regulate. And now they've entered the business of regulating speech. And they're very proud of the Brussels, or the so-called Brussels effect when you ask them about it.
No,
This new EU law is essentially an anti-speech law. And when you read the case law of the European Court of Justice, statements from senior officials, and the provisions of the Digital Services Act, you can see everything is there to create a digital censorship industrial complex. We see a whole structure of trusted flaggers, codes of conduct on so-called hate speech and misinformation.
it's called the state doing his bloody job.
Content moderation for so-called systemic risks. Much of this is hidden in bland technocratic language in the DSA, and our written submissions go into some of the problems associated with it. But it constitutes nothing more than an attempt to bring Brussels regulation of speech onto a global stage. Furthermore, when the European
It comes to a global stage because the European Union is a global actor, and what we do and what we say influences the world. Maybe that is the problem, okay?
Union is now negotiating trade deals, including with your neighbours to the north in Canada, they insist that the Digital Services Act is part of that. So it's very clearly a global intent. It means that the European Union will set the global standard when it comes to speech. And because of the laws that I just outlined in Europe, the type of prosecutions we're seeing, it's an extremely low standard. It draws, I would suggest to you, a digital curtain where once there was an iron curtain. And US companies
Comparing the EU to the Soviet Union. You heard it, okay? As I told you, I know a bit about psychology, and I understand how people sometimes try to slip in these little nuggets. And this guy has just compared the European Union to the Soviet Union. Let that sink in.
bear the brunt disproportionately of this. They're hijacked by the DSA to become essentially the EU's global censorship police, whether they like it or not. The DSA contains expansive powers of investigation, huge compliance costs, and crippling fines if they're found to be non-compliant for removing so-called illegal content. Indeed, I commend your committee's report recently on showing the bias at the heart of the system. As we speak, companies are having to make a decision, an invidious decision between whether or not they defend German pensioners criticizing politicians or they comply with the
Again, false.
European Commission and with national laws. We know from COVID censorship which is the most likely route they take.
There was no COVID censorship. no COVID censorship. You continue with this talk. Just last year, I saw a news piece in Germany talking about the effects of long COVID, of people that have had their vaccines of COVID. Let me just. These people continue with this idea that there was some kind of cover up of COVID in Europe when there was none. Every day during COVID, we saw how many people got infected, how many people died, news about it from all over Europe. But I guess he was too busy with his organization or whatever to see it or to remember. We also have to consider that people sometimes don't recall things, and I really don't understand this because but this is an example I was giving. I saw a news piece in a in German from Germany, of course, when they were interviewing, I think around 4 people, something like that, 4 or 5 people that had long COVID. And at least 2 of them had negative effects, reactions, sorry, to the vaccine. And they were suffering from serious health problems. So we know perfectly well how the vaccine works. To tell you in a very, but really, really unscientific and simple way, it's like this. Imagine COVID is a pickpocket, guy that likes to steal from your pockets. And the vaccine tells you, look, that guy, he likes it. That vaccine tells your body, look, that guy is a pickpocketer. He's going to steal your wallet. Be careful. And from then on, your body will recognize that virus as a threat. And the virus, he will disguise himself, okay? It's the robber, he'll put on a fake mustache, whatever, and try to steal your wallet. The difference is you will end up by recognizing that guy is a threat and you are going to try to catch him. And meanwhile, you will have symptoms of the disease. The difference here is you won't die. If I had not had my vaccines, I would have probably died. Honestly, from what the doctor told me. Honestly, very honestly. And having my boosters, my vaccine and my boosters, and I worked all through the pandemic, every day, okay, except weekends and vacations, okay, because I am in Europe, which is a civilized place. I got COVID, and it was not easy. I was, let's say, 2 days bedridden, extreme fevers, fever, fever, extreme fever, and I was 2 days bedridden. I sweat like a dog. I lost weight, okay, and it was not very nice. And I had pains. How can I describe this? Imagine, I don't know if you already had that experience, but right here in this arm, I once got stabbed, and the knife hit the bone. This is the type of pain that you have. Imagine someone is sticking a knife in your muscles, especially in your muscles and in your bones and whatever, and you feel that knife stirring away in your bones. That's exactly the feeling that I had 2 days on the road. Day 3, man, I got up, I just took basic medicine while I was sick, okay, which is paracetamol for the pain, because I cannot take aspirin, nothing like that. Hmm? And basically, day 3, man, I got up, I had myself a cold shower, dried up, still felt a bit woozy during that day. Day 4, I was alright. Day 5, I went back to work. This is what vaccines are. And these people continue with this COVID shit. And what happens right now is that, for example, if you're on YouTube here in Europe, I don't know how it is in the United States, a little warning about COVID or what COVID was pops up beneath the video telling you what COVID is. And if you are trying to say that vaccines don't work and whatever, you can say that. No one is going to stop you. But if you try to do it in a certain form, then it's a crime. Let's finish up this. I'm trying to finish up this. Sorry for my rants.
Compliance is easier and cheaper, but it is not good for speech. Indeed, yesterday I was just informed by a senior lawyer for a major US company that the Germans are prosecuting a 14-year-old boy for a mild online post. They want the identity of another post outside Germany, and they've launched criminal proceedings against US employees of this.
Yes, because if you are working inside of Europe, then you have to take care, because you will be prosecuted, as you should.
Company for refusing to pass over the identity information. That's the attitude we're dealing with. We've seen it from Thierry Breton, from others in the European Commission. They want this censorship power and they want it globally. The digital square is one of the great gifts from the United States to the world. It has been transformative for our political discussion. But the EU wants to make itself the sheriff of the square, and it's armed itself with powerful tools. And there are more to come.
We just want to be the sheriff of our own tools, of our own space. You have nothing to do with this. You can do whatever the hell you want to do in the United States. But here, you follow our laws. And if other countries we deal with want to deal with us, they accept our laws too, as we will accept theirs too. We are making agreements with Canada, and Canada is not being forced to do this or do that. We are sitting at the table and discussing things, which is something your president in the United States does not like to do. He prefers to wake up in the middle of the night and send some tariffs.
Unfortunately, including the Democracy Shield. I agree with Ranking Member Raskin that it is sad when close allies and democracies do this kind of thing, and we must call them out for it. We must take a stand against this new censorship wave. Democracy requires free speech. I'm looking forward to our discussion and any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Price. The Right Honourable Member of Parliament, Mr. Farage, is recognised.
Well, thank you very much indeed. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Chairman Jordan, for inviting me here today. And it turns out, with news in the last 48 hours, to have been really rather timely. I'm delighted to reacquaint with the charming Mr. Raskin.
Again, trying to be ironic and funny and failing miserably.
It was delightful testimony you gave me earlier on with your speech. But hey, that's fine. You can say what you like. I don't care. Because that's what free speech is.
Again, trying to be funny.
And in a sense, this has all been going wrong now for a couple of decades. We've kind of forgotten the Voltairean principles that we'll fight.
You have not got a clue of the Voltairean principles.
And defend to the death your right to say something that we fundamentally disagree with. That is the absolute foundation, if you think about it, of free speech, of democracy, of living in freedom. It's kind of why we fought 2 world wars at massive, massive cost to defend that very principle for ourselves and for many, many others around the country. And I first became worried about all this with cancel culture. You know, the idea that we can't have this speaker go to a university because some people might be offended by what he or she have to say. It is important to note that there is not a parent.
Just to say one thing. Why is he wearing this? GB News. That's the first thing I have to say. And then, what is up with this tie? Oh, good God.
In the United Kingdom, and I would guess it's the same for America too, that is not concerned about content their children as minors can find on the internet. Not a single parent that is not concerned about this. But at the moment, we're not finding the right solutions. I do myself begin to think that hardware might be one of the solutions, that laptops, that handsets could be programmed so that many apps and many services simply aren't available from these devices. But what we've done is to go down the legislative route. And it's extraordinary that, you know, I come from the land of Magna Carta, I come from the land that gave us the mother of parliaments, and it doesn't give me any great joy.
And you are disrespecting all of those principles, Mr. Farage.
To be sitting in America and describing the really awful authoritarian situation that we have now sunk in.
What authoritarian situation? I really would like to know it, you know. I really would like you to show me that so-called authoritarian situation.
J.D. Vance did us all a service at the Munich Security Conference.
Mr. Vance did no favor to America or to anyone, except to annoy other people, annoy his European allies, and destroy all of that soft power that America had. He is now being quoted as one of the reasons why Europe will never trust America again. Let that sink in, Nigel. May I call you Nigel?
Back in February this year, he really got this debate up and running, and it's a vital one. We've run on since then. The Online Safety Act was put in place by the last Conservative government. I don't doubt for a minute they're good intentions, but sometimes the road to hell is paved with those good intentions.
Oh God, please don't use common expressions like that, okay? You don't even know the significance of it.
We are now where we are. We have a couple of very famous cases. We, of course, have Lucy Connolly.
Lucy Connolly, that incited people to burn down, I believe, to burn down hotels where migrants were still staying.
Who put out an intemperate tweet after the savage murder of those three beautiful
young girls. They were murdered by an English-born person. I think he was Welsh, even if he is of foreign families, but he was raised Christian at least. And of those three girls, one of them was even Portuguese. Okay, but you, Mr. Farage, you went into the TV and you incited people to hatred, and then people that unfortunately are ignorant or filled with hate or filled with disgust or filled with all the issues that were caused by Brexit, they chose to come out into the street, and instead of criticizing their government, that they should have criticized the Tories, and they did nothing because they were being fooled both by the Tories and both by you, Mr. Farage. They, instead of doing something, no, they just went out into the streets and they attacked everything that was foreigner, everything that was brown, Muslim, different, whatever. Let's not forget that too, Mr. Farage.
Young girls, she herself, a mother who had lost a child. It was intemperate, it was wrong, but she removed it 3.5 hours later.
She removed it, but she posted it, and she has to assume the responsibilities for her actions.
Sentenced to 31 months in prison. She's now out, having served 40% of the time. I wanted to bring her with me today as living proof of what can go wrong. Sadly, the restrictions that have been put on her banned her from making the trip, which is a very, very great shame. And we, of course, have the extraordinary events that we understood yesterday of Graham Linehan, the comedic writer.
An anti-trans person. Let's not forget that too. If you are going to talk about people, then also talk about their bias. I'm not saying I agree or disagree. I'm just saying if a person has bias, then you should mention it, Nigel.
And he put out some tweets months ago when he was in Arizona. And months later, he arrives at Heathrow Airport to be met by 5 armed police.
Okay. What difference does it make that he posted those comments months ago? Are you saying, for example, that if a person murders someone and then goes away for a couple of months, and that person returns, it will not be natural that the police is investigating him or her, whoever, and waiting for an opportunity to arrest him? Like, for example, at an airport? Is that what you're saying? Well, I know English law is a bit different than ours, but I don't think it condones murder.
Armed police, not a big deal in the USA, a very big deal in the United Kingdom.
Again, false. I have spoken with a lot of persons in the UK. I have seen also available videos by a lot of YouTubers from the UK. I have spoken with Portuguese people that have gone to the UK. I have spoken with Portuguese people that lived in the UK, and the fact that there is armed policemen at the airport is not abnormal. It's normal. Oh, sorry, I got.
Who put out an intemperate tweet after the savage murder.
That's just.
Those 3 beautiful young girls, she herself, a mother who had lost a child. It was intemperate, it was wrong, but she removed it. 3.5 hours.
Later, sentenced to 31
months in prison. She's now out, having served 40% of the time. I wanted to bring her with me today as living proof of what can go wrong. Sadly, the restrictions that have been put on her banned her from making the trip.
which is a very, very great shame.
Sorry, folks, I'm a bit tired.
And we, of course, have the extraordinary events that we understood yesterday of Graham Linehan, the comedic writer, and he put out some tweets months ago when he was in Arizona, and months later he arrives at Heathrow Airport to be met by 5 armed police. Armed police, not a big deal in the USA, a very big deal in the United Kingdom. 5 of them. And he was arrested and taken away for questioning. He's not even a British citizen. He's an Irish citizen. This could happen to any American man or woman that goes to Heathrow that has said things online that the British government and British police don't like. It is a potentially big threat.
Not something that the British government, the British police don't like. Someone that is under investigation for committing a crime. Don't twist what happened. Don't twist the events, Nigel, please.
To tech bosses, to many, many others. This legislation we've got will damage trade between our countries, threaten free speech across the West because of the knock-on rollout effects of this legislation from us or from the European Union. So I've come today as well to be a klaxon, to say to you, don't allow.
How many times have you been in Clacton doing your job as an MP elected by Clacton? Someone in the comments drop me a comment and tell me how many times he was there.
Piece by piece, this to happen here in America. And you would be doing us and yourselves and all freedom-loving people a favour if your politicians and your businesses said to the British government, you've simply got this wrong.
So, the United States will dictate to the United Kingdom how they have to legislate and regulate their own country. So as you can see, Mr. Farage here, you heard him, you heard his words. Let me just focus on me. So Mr. Farage here is telling you that he wants the United States to dictate you, the British citizens, that are citizens of a country, in this case, not a country, sorry, my Scottish friends, a union. You are citizens of a union, of a sovereign nation, and he's telling the Americans, oh, please go and tell the British government how they should act. I don't know what is the legal definition for this in the United Kingdom, but here in Portugal, I believe that is called treason. To ally with a foreign power to influence the functioning of your own state. At least here it's called treason, but in the United Kingdom I don't know. Please drop me in the comments and tell me about it, okay? Let's continue.
At what point did we become North Korea? Well, I think the
North
Irish comedy
Korea.
writer found
North
that out
Korea.
2 days ago at Heathrow Airport. This is a genuinely worrying, concerning, and shocking situation, and I thank you for the opportunity.
I'm more concerned by hordes of people incited by you, or your party, or your speech, whatever you want to call it, I don't know, trying to burn down hotels filled with migrants, and the migrants that are a result of your country's incapability of doing its job of protecting your borders and of regulating who you allow inside of your borders.
To come here today.
Thank you, Mr. Well said. Thank you, Mr. Farage.
You see, well said. Another more bias.
Professor Kay, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Chairman Jordan, Ranking.
Did you see the difference of treatment of Farage and Professor K? Because the Professor K here he's going to tell all of these people a couple of things that I don't like. I don't agree 100% with everything that he says. I'll say it from the start, but he is not telling lies. This is all I will have to say about this. Let's just finish listening to him so that then I can finish this episode. Okay? Let's go.
Member Raskin, members of the committee, thank you for the invitation to appear before you. I ask that my written statement be entered into the record. My name is David Kay. I'm a law professor at the University of California, Irvine, where I research and teach in international law. I know something about censorship. From 2014 to 2020, I was the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Opinion and Expression. In that role, I monitored a growing global assault on free speech. Among other things, I led a landmark effort to call out China's attacks on civil society. I detailed repression of media and criticism in Putin's Russia. I condemned Iran's suppression of dissent, and I even criticized democratic governments when they sought to force platforms to take down lawful speech. That is censorship. Violations of the human right to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas of all kinds, guaranteed by Article 19 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, a treaty ratified by the United States in 1992. Inspired by the First Amendment, it guarantees a speaker's rights and the rights of everyone to access information. So it pains me that the United States, the country that had my back as Special Rapporteur, the land of the First Amendment's make no law, now leads the charge to undermine freedom of speech and of the press. The threat is real, live, and I think shocking given our nation's historic commitments. The administration follows a well-worn path. A few examples. The silencing of scientists and public health officials. Just last week, the head of the CDC was fired because she would not agree to change her conclusions about vaccines. The administration has scrubbed websites that doctors and parents use to make decisions. Censoring and punishing speech of visitors. In visa interviews and at the border, there are increasing reports of officers screening visitors according to their social media activity or detaining and deporting based on speech and op-eds. And the repeated assaults on the media, as we've seen attacks on public broadcasting, frivolous lawsuits against media outlets, and the decimation of Voice of America. This is the tip of an iceberg.
He is quoting facts that happened, that are happening, and that can be verified.
Of censorship that should concern this committee and every American. Yet US officials who claim to be free speech warriors are spending their time looking abroad. Now, I know of nobody who argues that EU and British laws on speech are perfect. Still, the EU Digital Services Act and the UK Online Safety Act respond to problems both sides of the aisle in Congress have found serious but have yet to address: the enormous, opaque, and unaccountable power of a small number of massive tech companies over our information environments. The EU answered the question of massive platform power not by claiming new powers to take down content or accounts. It adopted new rules to empower users, including by requiring notice and an opportunity to appeal content moderation decisions. The Online Safety Act, championed by Labor and conservative parties, was widely popular as an attempt to hold big tech accountable. It does have elements that concern me, yet whatever faults it might have, it, like any other British law, is subject to legal challenge and review by courts for any violation of fundamental rights, just as we would expect of any democracy. Neither established censorship regimes. I encourage members of this committee to consider two things. First, instead of criticizing allied democracies, consider the kinds of content online that you find objectionable. Maybe it's anti-Semitic or Islamophobic content, misogyny, child endangerment, content glorifying terrorism or inciting violence. How do you propose to address those in a way that is consistent with free speech values? That's not an easy question, and it can't be waved away with just 3 words: because free speech. The EU and the UK have made their choices subject to democratic judicial oversight, and acting in good faith, I think this committee could do the same. Second, this committee has the obligation to protect Americans' freedom of expression here at home. The administration is putting freedom of expression under direct attack, and I think oversight and constraint from this committee would make quite a bit of sense. That, I would respectfully submit, is the real threat to American speech and innovation, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Very well. We have finished the presentations of the people that are going to speak in the commission. Let me just record here. Just a minute, please. Sorry, I'm doing this as we speak. Now, we have finished the presentations today. In the next video, we'll continue with watching the interviews, let's call it like this, and we're going to listen to all of the testimonies. But just to wrap this up, this person that you now heard is a law professor, so he knows the law. And I will say this without any kind of bias, just of my superficial analysis, that comparing this gentleman to the other person, the other one that identified himself as barrister, I'm sorry I did not catch his name, very sorry. It's a bit like trying to compare a professional auto mechanic and your dad that knows how to change the oil of your car. Crazy example, but I think you understand the analogy, what I'm trying to say. He also points out a very important fact is that all that is decided in the EU and in the UK it can be contested in a court. Meaning, if you don't like it, if you think your rights are being offended, let's call it like this, you can contest them. And that, my friends, is how you legislate. There is a situation, for example, in this case, the internet, there is this situation, then you legislate. You create laws, you create the basis upon which all companies, all private citizens know how things will be processed. And it doesn't matter if, for example, an employee of Google, this is an example, okay? An employee of Google in Europe, even if he's an American, whatever, if he refuses to cooperate with the European authorities that are acting, like he pointed out, on the democratic will of the people, it doesn't matter what nationality he is or even where he is, that person can be prosecuted. Simple as that. You might say, oh, they are going to jail him in America. No, they're not. They're just going to prosecute him. And then, if he happens to come to Europe, he will get jailed or fined or whatever. In this case, I think it will be merely a fine. Okay. They are not going to jail a person for something like for a refusal. What they usually do is do what they did. I think it was to Facebook. I think it was or X or something like that. You just fine them. And the value of the fines, you have to understand this, the value of the fines is also dependent on the volume of business. And this is another thing that the Americans don't like, because this means if you have more business, you will pay a larger fine, which also goes against the myth of that gentleman that says this law is favoring only the big companies. No, it's not. It's just cutting the middleman. It's just passing from the middleman's hands, it's passing it to our hands. And it's saying, look, if you want to let these guys do this, they are forced, let's call it like this, they are obliged to comply with these rules because they want to work here. And if something happens, I complain, anyone, I complain, and the EU authorities are mandated for example, to end that company's ability to work in Europe. It's one of the sanctions. Right now here, we even have the right to be forgotten. This means that you can, for example, you are in a determined platform and you don't want to be there anymore. And you just go to that platform, you say you want them to remove all of your data, and they have to. If they do not do that, they will be subjected to sanctions. What is wrong with this? Tell me. Does this infringe in uh, some fringe politician in the UK's freedom of speech? Drop me in the comments your opinions on it. Well, thank you very much for bearing this one. It's a long one hour and something. And I hope to catch you all in the next one, where we will start listening to the several interventions. We are more or less, let me see, we are more or less, no, we are not even at the middle ground. But let's carry on. This is more or less fun. Thank you all for listening to my rants, listening to this, and I hope to catch you all in the next one. Stay safe. Again, if you are in America, I hope that you and your family, that you are safe and that you are protected. And I hope to catch you all in the next one.